All right, let's go over these numbers, you guys. We are going to say this total run took me 3 weeks. It was less than 3 weeks, but once I got home, I took the next several days off. So we're just going to call it 3 weeks for all intensive purposes. So that's the 3 weeks, right? I hauled a total of 18 loads. Of those 18 loads, just to give you an idea, 10 of them were vehicles and 8 of them were freight loads. Okay, so almost half and half, almost exactly half and half. And of those 18 loads, 10 of them came off of the load board and 8 of them were from direct customers. Okay, that's important. And this is important because now we're going to look at the revenue. So the total revenue was $18,653. Of that total revenue, the 10 loads off of the load board totaled $7,853. And the 8 loads from my direct customers totaled $10,800. So how are these numbers important, right? This is important in my mind because I hauled 10 loads in total off of the load board, but those 10 loads only equaled $7,853. But I actually hauled less loads for my direct customers, only 8, but they actually totaled a higher revenue count. And so that's where it comes into play, why I'm always telling you guys, go after direct customers. They're going to be more fair to you. And that is a clear indicator right there. Not even $8,000. So you're talking about almost $3,000 more from direct customers for really less miles and a lower load count. So that's important. So this is the recap logistically. This is the recap, right? How much time it took me, how many loads I hauled, how many of those loads were cars versus freight, how many of those loads were off of the load board versus direct customers, and the revenue breakdown, right? The total revenue versus the revenue from the load board versus the revenue from direct customers, okay? So now let's go over to our other tab. This is revenue versus expenses over 3 weeks, okay? You guys are going to see this. These are my fixed costs, okay? The breakdown of these costs here is going to be over here, okay? If you want to know exactly how much I paid for exactly whatever, it's right here, okay? So these numbers total $3826.95, okay? Hotels, I had 5 hotels. That's the total, 462. Of course, if you guys are always staying in in your truck or somewhere else, whatever, then this number is irrelevant to you. And also, if you look at these fixed costs over here, I'm allotting $800 for a maintenance fund, when in reality, that's a little high for 3 weeks. But I overestimated when it comes to expenses here. I overestimated. Okay, diesel and def, that's a combination. Each of these is from each run. Texas to Idaho, Utah to California, California to Oregon, Oregon back to California, and then California to Nevada to Arizona to Texas. So that's diesel and def, but that's totaled up per run, as I would like to say. If you guys remember, I mean, even though I'm including a maintenance fund of $800 over here, if you guys remember, I also had a blowout in Utah, which cost me $326. And then I bought 2 new tires. I had a blowout in Arizona, so I bought 2 new tires there, which was $612. So that's $938 worth of tires that are not included in this maintenance fund of $800. I also got a cracked windshield in Arizona, so I had that repaired. You guys remember that? That cost me $65. So again, that was a boo-boo that happened on the road, and it got repaired on the road. So that is not, I'm not including that in the maintenance fund. So that's where I say this is a little bit high. But you see, I had expenses, whatever, breakdowns, whatever you want to call them, on the road. So they're taken care of here. I went up to Oregon. So I got an Oregon one-way or round trip permit, I should say. That cost me $38. And I went through New Mexico on my way out of Texas, going up to Idaho. And then I went through New Mexico again from California back to Texas on my last run home. So those are the two costs for the New Mexico permits, which was $81. So all of these expenses here, right, are totaled up right here, $97.04. That's my gross revenue minus my total expenses. We're looking at $89.48 basically to my pocket. I guess if you guys want, you can take 20%. I don't know. People say they put 20% aside for taxes at the end of the year. It's been my experience that I have not paid taxes. I always get a refund on my taxes. So, you can put aside that 20% if you feel comfortable in doing that. And then, hey, at the end of the year, if you don't pay taxes at the end of the quarter or the end of the year, great. You have a nice giant vacation fund that, is just sitting in your bank. So that's wonderful, right? But if you do pay taxes, then, obviously that 28% or that 20% is going to come out of your $9,000. So basically, right, if we divide these numbers, just over half. And again, I'm like super overestimating this, right? I'm super overestimating my expenses, my fixed costs. But, you kind of have to do that. So this is worst case scenario. I only made $89.48. I made $9,000 out of the $18.6. I made $9,000. That's the all miles. I tracked that all miles from the time I left Texas to the time I emptied out my last load and got home. That was 7,151 miles. So if we divide that, I think it was just over 260 a mile, all miles. And again, 18 loads. So I am estimating 3 weeks because it was, 2.5 or whatever, but I've been off for several days. And that's what it looks like. So if we go back and look at this, you guys, this to me, this is very important. My direct customers, oh my God, I have just had the worst experience with King of Freight right now, booking a load. And, they've dicked me around. And so I had my driver just go and get it. But, we really got the short end of the stick. And that's really what you're going to find at least some of the time when you're working off of the load board versus when you have direct customers, you're not going to get dicked around like that. So, and you see it in the revenue, what I see from this data is my direct customers are treating me better and paying me better than I'm finding off of the load board. So this is a clear indicator, you guys, that it would behoove you not to find at least a couple direct customers to work with, and then do what I do is use the load board as filler. So take that, you guys, leave it, do whatever you want to do with it. But those are my realistic numbers, exaggerated, right? Realistic numbers, but at least from the expenses point of view, I exaggerated some of them because I want to see worst case scenario, what is my actual net profit? So if we're talking, let's just call that $9,000. $9,000 divided into 3 weeks, that's $3,000 in my pocket per week. Now, is that better than it was when I was sitting at the office for about 60 hours a week? Yes. Am I working a little bit more than 60 hours a week? Probably, but it's probably more than double than the revenue that I was making in the office. And in a lot of ways, it's less stressful. And in some ways, it's more stressful, but I have the freedom to take off, right? I ran hard for these 3 weeks, so now I have the freedom to take off or to book some more loads. Of course, you guys know me, I've booked more loads. I took off, almost a week, and I've booked some loads, so I'm going to start back to work tomorrow. But those are the numbers. You guys, if you want to share, you think it's too high, you think it's too low, you think I ran too many miles for too little of revenue. But I will also tell you this. Number one, I dispatch myself. Number two, you guys know I am completely independent. I am not leased onto a company. I have my own DOT numbers. I am my own entity. My business is its own entity. My authority is its own entity. I'm not leased on. I don't have a dispatch service. I don't have a factoring company. There's nobody else. Taking a piece of my pie. So before you guys come at me and tell me, oh, I make $25,000 in 3 weeks, or I make $30,000 in 3 weeks. Well, if you're leased on and you're cutting somebody in for 30% of that, then you're actually making less than me. Okay. And this diesel, okay, yes, I used the Convoy card almost all of the time. So I got discounts on my diesel. So Again, you may have a fuel card, maybe you're paying cash, I don't know. Maybe you're seeing a different amount of diesel going out than I am. Of course, my MPG on that 7,155 miles, all miles, my truck said my average MPG was 9.5. That is with a lightweight truck and a lightweight trailer, sometimes running heavy, sometimes not. So I get a certain, MPG average that maybe some do, maybe some don't get what I get. Maybe you're averaging 7 or 8. Well, that's going to make your diesel numbers a lot higher, your cost of diesel a lot higher. And you either have to account for that by charging more to the customer, or you have to be more picky with what loads that you can take, et cetera, et cetera. But these are my numbers. So that's what it is, you guys. Everybody wants to know. I'm always posting the gross revenue, because that's what's important. My truck payment, what I pay for insurance, what I pay on my fixed costs, they're going to be different than yours. So this is just an example of what I ran and how much net revenue I made over how many weeks. So I hope that helps you guys. If you're looking at the industry, are you going to make these numbers right off the bat? No. Are you going to have direct customers right off the bat? No. This is me, 4 years in, and this is what I'm doing realistically. One, with dispatching myself, with my own direct customers, and with a mix of load board. And this is my realistic numbers. And again, I'm almost 4 years into this. So if you guys are starting out, especially right now when it's quote unquote slow season, you're not going to see these numbers. You're probably not going to see these numbers. If you do, fantastic, but don't expect to see these numbers right off the bat. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. You gotta put your time in. You gotta keep your nose clean. You gotta work on your safety score, and you gotta never use your insurance. And that money will increase as you gain experience. The money will increase, and hopefully your miles will decrease. I hope that helps you guys, sheds a little light for you, and I'll catch you soon.